I moved back into my childhood home a few months ago after my mother passed. It was a big Victorian house, and it felt empty without her. I thought sorting through her things might help me feel closer to her. I wasn't working much as a graphic designer. I needed something to fill the days. One afternoon, I decided to tackle the attic. I climbed up the creaky steps. Dust danced in the air as I pushed aside old boxes. I found toys from my childhood, faded photographs, and strange items I didn't recognize. It felt bittersweet but familiar. Then I noticed a weathered box way back in a corner. My heart raced as I pulled it out. Inside were VHS tapes, all labeled in my mother's neat handwriting. I felt a shiver of excitement and fear. What would be on these tapes? I saw an old VCR beside the box. I hadn't seen one in years, but it felt heavy in my hands. I set it up carefully, the attic turning even quieter around me. I grabbed the tape labeled home and inserted it into the VCR. The screen flickered, and I felt a knot in my stomach. What would I see? At first, it was normal. There were my childhood friends playing in my backyard, laughing and having fun. But then everything shifted. The laughter faded and turned unsettling. The kids' faces began to warp. I didn't recognize them anymore. My heart raced, but I couldn't seem to turn it off. I felt glued to the screen that I pressed play on another tape. This one showed a family gathering, but I couldn't remember half the people there. The air felt cold, wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. I thought I heard whispers in the background. They sounded wrong, faint, and distorted, like echoes from a nightmare. Time lost meaning as I watched more tapes. Each one felt stranger. My mother was in most of them, but things were off: her expression, her voice. They weren't the memories I held. I wondered who recorded these. Why didn't I remember them? My stomach twisted with dread as I realized I was peering into something I wasn't meant to uncover. Then there was a sound, a breath, or maybe a whisper came from the screen. My skin prickled. I leaned closer, turning the volume up. The noise grew louder and more distorted. The room felt like it was closing in around me. Suddenly, the screen went black. The weight of uncertainty filled the attic. I sat in silence, staring at the empty screen. The last image haunted me, faces twisted in a way I couldn't shake off. What were those tapes? I couldn't stop thinking about them. They felt like a warning. Why did my mother keep them? I didn't know. As I sat there, I felt a chill beside me. I was alone in that attic, but something surrounded me. I felt like the past was reaching out, and I didn't know how to pull away. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I thought about the tapes all night, tried to convince myself I was just being paranoid. I decided I would go back to the attic. Maybe there was something I missed. That I climbed up the steps again, my hand gripping the railing tightly. The attic felt even more oppressive today, like it was holding its breath. I looked at the empty VCR, still plugged in, and stared at the box of tapes. I felt drawn to it. Instead of tossing them aside, I picked up another tape, this one labeled Family Secrets. My heart sank. I didn't want to watch it, but part of me felt I had to. I inserted it into the VCR, and once again, the screen flickered to life. This time, it started with a blurry image of my mother standing in front of a mirror. She looked different, almost haunted. Her expression was tight, and she seemed to be whispering to herself. I leaned in closer, trying to hear what she was saying. The audio crackled, but I made out a few words: tread carefully, she murmured over and over. I felt a shiver creep down my spine. What was she warning me about? Suddenly, the image shifted. It became jagged, and I saw faces again, only this time they weren't warped. They were clear but twisted in their anger. I recognized one face, a family member I had forgotten long ago. His eyes looked lost, filled with something dangerous. Then everything went fuzzy. The screen blinked, and as it cleared again, I saw a dark shadow pass behind my mother's reflection in the mirror. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't alone in that room. Something else was there with her. Before I could process what I was seeing, the tape cut off in a flash. I felt the air leave my lungs. I stumbled backward, shaking. My mother had known. She was warning me about something hidden in our family. Restlessness surged within me. What had she uncovered? More importantly, what was I getting into? I picked up the box of tapes, ready to bring them downstairs and inspect them further. But as I turned to leave, I froze. There was again a chill that crept along my spine. I was definitely not alone. I felt eyes on me, unblinking and watching. My heart raced as I scanned the attic, half expecting to see someone or something lurking in the shadows. That S when I saw it. A faded photograph sticking out from beneath the floorboards. It looked ancient, and I couldn't resist the urge to pull it out. As I lifted it, I was met with a dark realization. It was a family portrait, but this one included people I didn't recognize, all staring back at me with unsettling smiles. With trembling hands, I flipped it over. What was written sent ice coursing through my veins. The truth is buried, but we will find you. I dropped the photo as if it burnt. Who had left this message? Then I heard a soft whisper echoed in the attic, clear as day. You shouldn't have come back. Before I could react, the lights flickered, plunging me into darkness. I fumbled for the light switch, my fingers trembling. With each frantic attempt, I felt the darkness close in, as if it was alive, wrapping around me. Finally, the light flickered back on, casting weak beams across the attic. My heart raced as I scanned the room, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw something move in the corner. But when I looked again, there was nothing. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the panic rising in my chest. The photo still lay on the floor, mocking me. I picked it up again and examined the faces closely. They looked too perfect, too staged, as if they were trapped in time. I was certain I had never met them, yet they felt unsettlingly familiar. My pulse raced as I thought about my mother's warning. Tread carefully. What had she uncovered that had led her to caution me? Maybe these strange faces held the answers. I slipped the photograph into my back pocket, determined to confront whatever secrets waited for me in those tapes that I glanced back at the VCR. The remaining tapes were a dark mystery I needed to solve. With shaky hands, I picked up another one. This time, it was labeled The Last Goodbye. As the tape loaded and the screen lit up, an unsettling silence enveloped me. The opening shot was familiar. My childhood living room appeared, but it was different, cluttered, as if my family had just moved in. In the corner, I spotted myself, no older than 10, hugging my mother. I felt a pang of nostalgia before it quickly turned to dread. My mother looked tired, her eyes heavy with secrets. The scene flickered, and then came a familiar voice, my own. I was excitedly recalling a trip I had taken with my mother that summer. Mom, can we go back to the lake? I want to see the fish again. I heard the childish joy in my words, oblivious to the tension written across her face. The screen shook, and suddenly my mother's voice took over, low and urgent. I can go back there, not now. I felt cold. The sunlight streaming through the window felt exhilarating, yet it turned oppressive in an instant. Why was she so afraid? But before I could gather my thoughts, the video skipped again. It showed my mother standing by the lake, staring into the water like it held the answers to questions I didn't even know to ask. She looked up suddenly, as if she sensed the camera, and her expression changed fear, dread, a resolve. The scene shifted abruptly, showing what looked like a storm rolling in over the lake. Thunder boomed in the background, and my heart raced as I remembered the day perfectly. It was one of the last times we were together. Run! My mother screamed. The video ended with my child self and my mother racing to reach the car, panic etched in our faces. I sat clutching the remote. Something had happened that day, something I could feel but couldn't yet grasp. As I tried to unwind my thoughts, a sudden noise echoed. Something fell in the corner of the attic, making me jump. I turned to see a shadow moving just outside the beam of light. A breath caught in my throat. I wasn't alone. Who was there? I called out, my voice trembling. No answer came, just an oppressive silence pressing down around me. But I knew, whatever was hidden in those tapes was creeping closer. I had to find out what my mother had meant and what awaited me at the lake. I heard the rustle again, and my heart raced. I set the remote down, half forgetting the video that had just played. Something or someone was lurking in the shadows, testing my courage. My instinct screamed at me to stay put. Every muscle in my body tensed as I strained to hear anything over the sound of my own heartbeat. I slowly turned back toward the corner, peering into the darkness. Is anyone there? I tried again, my voice firmer this time, but still shaky. The shadows remained unyielding. I wished I could shake off the fear, but the weight of the unknown pressed down on me. I grabbed the flashlight from the floor and directed it toward the corner. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing a small, old trunk, the kind that looked like it hadn't been opened in years. It was covered in a thick layer of dust, just like everything else up here, but something about it felt significant, like it was waiting for me to discover it. My heart raced again, but this time with curiosity that I couldn't ignore it. The taped memories felt like a mere distraction now. I had to see what was inside. I dropped to my knees, brushing my fingers over the trunk's surface, feeling the jagged edges. Slowly, I fumbled for the latch. It creaked as I opened it, the sound echoing in the silence around me. Inside the trunk, I found old clothes, a few worn books, and dead center a stack of neatly wrapped letters tied with a faded ribbon. I pulled the letters free, reluctant to disturb what felt like an intimate moment from a past I hadn't been part of. But as I started to untie the ribbon, an icy rush swept through me. There was something uniquely eerie about these letters. They were addressed to my mother from someone with an unfamiliar name. I glanced around the attic, half expecting to see that shadow again. That S when a flicker of motion caught my eye. My stomach dropped. A figure stood just beyond the light. I gasped, dropping the letters. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice clinging to a mix of fear and determination. The figure melted further into the shadows, remaining just outside the light's reach. "Show yourself." The air felt thick, and the letters scattered across the floor as I backed away, retreating instinctively. "Please, I'm just here to understand." But the figure didn't move, just studying me as if it weighed my words. Was it watching me? I felt exposed, vulnerable. Then I remember my mother's warning about treading carefully. Faces from the photograph flashed in my mind. Then I noticed something. One of the letters had fallen open. Words written in my mother's handwriting caught in the beam of the flashlight. Before I could focus, the shadowy figure stepped forward. That S when everything went dark. The light flickered out, plunging me into a complete abyss. Panic set in as I fumbled for the light switch, but it didn't respond. The silence was deafening, and a chilling realization washed over me. I had to confront whatever was waiting in the darkness. I stood paralyzed in the dark, heart pounding in my chest. For a moment, all my senses heightened. I could hear my breath, quick and shallow. The cold air wrapped around me, and I felt the pulse of something unseen, just beyond reach. Then I noticed the quiet. It felt too still, too expectant. I willed my hand to move, reaching out for the wall, searching for something. Anything. Everything felt more fragile now. I finally found the edge of the trunk, my fingers grazing the rough wood. "Hello," I croaked, my voice barely a whisper. There was no reply, just the echoes of my own fears. I thought of the letters, the stories they might hold. The urge to go back to them overwhelmed me, but the memory of that figure stilled my resolve. Instead, I focused on the darkness, straining to see, to understand. Suddenly, I heard a sound, a soft rustle, like fabric brushing against something. My heart skipped. Was it the shadow? The thought of being trapped here with whatever that was gripped me tight. I flicked my wrist, and an old flashlight appeared. I pressed the button, praying for a beam of light. Nothing. Panic coursed through me, igniting desperation. I fumbled through my pockets for my phone, managing to turn on the flashlight. The glow illuminated only a small area around me. I turned the light toward the corner where the figure had stood. No one. I took a shaky breath and stepped farther into the attic. Each creak of the floorboards under my weight felt loud in the stillness. The trunk remained open, beckoning. I had to return to the letters. I had to know. I knelt by the trunk again, the pit in my stomach tightening. The scattered letters glowed softly in my phone's light. One caught my eye, the open one, mom's familiar handwriting on the yellow paper. "Dear Lucy," it began, and I could feel all the warmth and love it promised. But why was it addressed to someone unfamiliar? I read on, but before I could take in more than a handful of words, a loud crash echoed from the other end of the attic. I jumped, the paper slipping from my fingers and sailing toward the edge of the trunk. "Who is there?" I called out, surprise and fear flooding my voice. The noise had shattered the quiet, and I felt exposed under the weight of that encounter with the figure. I shook my head, trying to clear the swell of confusion. I forced myself to stand. "It's just the wind," I whispered, though I didn't believe it. I moved toward the sound. My phone held high to pierce through the darkness. The beam of light swept across the room, landing on a shadow, something shifting. I felt a chill creep up my spine. That's when I saw it. A small door, slightly ajar, that I had never noticed before. It was on the opposite side of the attic, nestled behind an old dresser. Something pulled at me to investigate, and dread welled in my throat. I had to know where it led. But just as I took a step forward, the door slammed shut. The sound reverberated around me, sending adrenaline coursing through my veins. The fear had morphed into something more primal. That's when I realized I wasn't alone in this attic after all. I stood frozen, heart racing, staring at the closed door. My mind raced with questions: who or what had just slammed it shut? I swallowed hard, wiping my clammy hands on my jeans. There had to be a rational explanation, but all I felt was fear gnawing at my resolve. "Stop it, Lucy," I muttered to myself, bracing my shoulders. I needed to know what was behind that door. I took a cautious step closer, the floor creaking ominously beneath me. The dim light from my phone flickered, and I tightened my grip. Just as I reached the door, it creaked open a crack, drawing a sharp breath from my lips. I peered inside. The beam landed on a small, dusty space beyond. My heartbeat drummed in my ears as I pushed the door open wider, revealing a dark staircase spiraling down into the unknown. "What the hell?" I whispered. "Should I really go down there?" My instinct screamed to turn back, but curiosity clashed with fear. I couldn't ignore it. Not after everything I had experienced tonight did I step through the threshold and began my descent, the flashlight beam trembling in front of me. The stairs felt narrow and worn, each step creaking like a forgotten memory. The air grew colder, heavy with a scent of mildew and dust. It felt ancient down here, like I was intruding on a secret that had long been buried. As I reached the bottom, I found myself in a small, dim room lined with shelves. My light flickered over various old boxes and dust-covered items. A rickety metal table stood in the center, and something glimmered in the corner. I moved toward it cautiously. On the table lay an old VHS player, surprisingly clean among the surrounding chaos. Beside it, a box overflowed with tapes thick, black, and labeled in faded ink. I hesitated, my heart pounding. I thought of the stories Mom had told about the attic, but she never mentioned this hidden space. An icy shiver traveled down my spine as I picked up the first tape. The label read, "Home, 1987. I had never seen these before. Was it a collection of family memories? Or was something more sinister? I felt a tug of anxiety as I wondered what I would discover. What if the contents of these tapes held truths I wasn't ready to hear? I was about to put the tape down when I heard a noise above me, a soft thud followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps. My breath caught in my throat. I quickly dropped the tape and moved back into the shadows, pressing against the wall. I need to hide. Then, the footsteps grew closer, slow and deliberate. My heart raced as I strained to listen, trying to make sense of this new threat. Someone was in the house, someone who shouldn't be there. Before I could formulate a plan, the light from above flooded into the small room, casting long shadows across the space. The door swung open, and I felt my stomach drop. I was trapped. I held my breath, heart pounding as the silhouette at the door came into view. A figure stepped inside, illuminated by the light from above. My skin prickled, and I pressed myself further into the corner, hoping to blend into the shadows. The figure paused, scanning the room. I couldn't see their face, but the outline seemed familiar. My mind raced through faces, trying to match the frame. Then, just as quickly, I dismissed the idea. Whoever this was, they didn't belong down here. "Hello," the voice called out, cautious, yet tinged with authority. It sent chills down my spine. I didn't answer. Instead, I stood still, silently hoping they would leave. "Lucy? Is it you?" The voice was unmistakable now. It was my neighbor, Mr. Jenkins. What was he doing here? My stomach twisted as the questions collided in my mind. Did he know about the tapes? Had he been watching me? I braced myself as I tried to gather my thoughts, but the darkness felt suffocating as he stepped further into the room. I'm not going to hurt you. The words were intended to reassure me, but they did the opposite. Mr. Jenkins was known for his peculiar habits collecting old things, talking to himself when he thought no one was listening, and now, apparently sneaking around my house. Suddenly, behind him, a wind gusted through the door, extinguishing the light. I gasped as I was plunged into darkness. The air thickened, carrying an unsettling silence that tightened around me like a vice. Is someone else down here? He asked, the tremor in his voice betraying a hint of fear. My mind screamed at me to make a break for it, but I remained frozen against the wall. I needed to know what he would do next. I risked a small shuffle, trying to ease my way toward the staircase, but a loud crash echoed from above. Something had fallen. The room trembled slightly, and I felt my pulse quicken with dread. Stay where you are, Mr. Jenkins shouted, panic evident as he moved toward the door. In that fleeting moment, his silhouette cast a lengthy shadow stretching across the floor. I could see his features now. His furrowed brow and wide eyes reflected something darker than fear, almost like recognition. That's when I noticed something glinting by his foot. A piece of metal, caught in the beam of light spilling down from the open door. My heart skipped as I recognized it. It was a keychain with an insignia I'd seen before, my mother's old keychain. Wait, I whispered, the sound barely escaping my throat. That's mine. He turned, but before he could respond, there was a muffled sound from upstairs, an angry shout, followed by more footsteps. My blood ran cold as realization struck. I was the only one in danger down here. Now I had to escape not just the confines of this room, but the shadows that loomed in every corner of my mind. I ducked deeper into darkness, thoroughly aware that I was no longer alone. But who or what was standing just out of sight? I could feel the chill creeping up my spine as I pressed against the cold wall. The sound of footsteps coming from upstairs grew louder, mixing with my quickening breath. Mr. Jenkins seemed to be wrestling with his thoughts, staring at the keychain like it was a ticking bomb. Lucy, you need to come out, he said, his voice more urgent now. Whatever is happening upstairs, we can't be caught down here. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I felt the tension radiating from him, like he was hiding something. His desperation made me wary. What did he know? Ignoring his plea, I turned my gaze toward the door, the faint light casting long shadows in the room. I needed to get out of here, and fast. I glanced at the staircase, but before I could make a move, the muffled shouting interrupted my thoughts again. It sounded closer this time. I saw it go downstairs. A voice barked when I recognized. It was Mark, my brother. My heart sank. What was he doing here? Mr. Jenkins, listen to me. I can't let him find me. I whispered harshly, trying to make him understand. Yes, your brother. He won't hurt you, Mr. Jenkins replied, but there was a hint of doubt in his voice that I took a breath to steady myself. You don't know him. He has been acting strange. Silence enveloped us for a moment. Then, the sound of a heavy thud reverberated above. My pulse raced as adrenaline coursed through me. I had to move. I darted towards the stairs, hoping to escape before Mark reached the lower level. Lucy, Mr. Jenkins shouted, as if sensing my intention. Don't. We need to stick together. His words tugged at me, but all I could feel was the urgency of the situation. I glanced back, debating whether to trust him. Before I could decide, the door above us creaked, surrendering to someone else's weight. Lucy, where are you? Mark's voice echoed down the staircase. I hesitated, torn between two terrifying choices. Then I caught a glimpse of the keychain lying on the floor again, a tether to my mother. It seemed significant now, like a thread connecting past and present. Mr. Jenkins, I said quickly, a new plan forming in my mind. You have to help me. We need to find out what's really happening. He watched me for a moment, then nodded, a mix of fear and determination on his face. Before I could give another thought to Mark, I ran toward the door. The echoes of my brother's footsteps were relentless, in pursuit of something that had already slipped from his grasp. Let's go. I gripped Mr. Jenkins' arm as we made for the stairs, taking one step after another. I could hear voices growing clearer above, and a chill shot through me. With one last look behind, I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever awaited us in the darkened house. We had no time, and I could no longer ignore the urgency of the mystery that had emerged from my mother's past. Then I heard another voice, one I least expected. My heart sank. "Lucy, I know you're down there." This time I couldn't move. "Lucy, I know you're down there." The voice was smooth, yet dripping with menace. It sent a wave of ice through my veins. Mark didn't sound like my brother anymore. The urgency of his shout twisted into something colder, more calculating. My heart pounded as I stood frozen in the dark, fighting the urge to bolt. "Don't say anything," Mr. Jenkins whispered. His grip tightened around my arm, pulling me against the wall as if to keep us invisible. I could hear the faint shuffle of his breathing next to me, steadying me even as dread swirled in the air. "Lucy, if you're smart, you'll come out now," Mark continued, his tone shifting to something almost coaxing. "Mom wouldn't want you to stay hidden like this. I just want to talk." I felt a sickening twist in my stomach at the mention of our mother. Memories of late-night conversations and whispered secrets came flooding back, but they felt tainted. I could picture Mark's face, the way he would smile, but that smile was gone now. "Mr. Jenkins, we have to show," he hissed, cutting me off. He leaned closer, and I could see the flicker of fear in his eyes. "We need to wait. He doesn't know we're here." I nodded, though my mind raced with thoughts. What had changed Mark? Why was he so different? I thought of the keychain, the last piece of my mother I had wanted to unearth. Was this all connected somehow? Upstairs, Mark paced, footsteps loud against the floorboards. I held my breath, listening. "I'm giving you one last chance to come out, Lucy. Where did you even find those old tapes? They don't belong to you." Tapes? My stomach dropped. I remembered the box I had stumbled upon in the attic. The old, dusty VHS tapes with no labels. The ones that had felt so out of place among my mother's things. "Lucy," Mark's voice cracked through the silence again, desperation mingling with frustration. "You know what's at stake here. Just trust me." The air felt charged, and my instincts screamed at me to flee. But what if Mark was right? What if those tapes held answers, keys to a past I didn't fully understand? "Mr. Jenkins, I think we need to go upstairs," I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. He hesitated, glancing back at the darkened doorway. "Are you sure? We can still hide." "No," I snapped. I felt a surge of determination. "If those tapes mean something, I need to know what." "All right," he said after a moment, resolve hardening his features. "But we have to be careful." We moved slowly, creeping up the stairs. Each step creaked ominously, but I couldn't turn back now. As we reached the landing, I caught sight of the hall, the door to my mother's old study at the end. The glow of a dim light spilled out, and I knew Mark was inside. Then it hit me. There were more secrets here than I had imagined. What if those tapes were the key to unraveling everything? But as I stood there, ready to move forward, I heard a noise that made my skin crawl. A soft click. Someone had locked the study door. Panic flared. My breath hitched in my throat. The room suddenly felt too small, too stifling. "Mr. Jenkins," I whispered, "what do we do now?" The answer hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty, as I realized I was about to step into a confrontation I wasn't prepared for. I reached for the doorknob, my heart thrumming wildly in my chest. Mark's presence felt like a storm brewing behind that closed door, and I couldn't ignore the waves of unease crashing over me. Mr. Jenkins stood beside me, his brow knitted in concern. "Lucy, we should think this through," he urged, his voice low. "Whatever you're expecting might not be what you find." "I can't turn back now," I replied, my voice trembling between fear and determination. I had to confront whatever was hidden in my family's past, and Mark was right in the thick of it. I could feel the ghosts of long-buried secrets urging me on. Drawing in a shaky breath, I twisted the knob. The door creaked as it opened, revealing the dim light filtering in from a lamp in the corner of the small study. My heart raced at the sight before me. It was a place saturated with bits of my childhood, tattered books, old photographs, a dusty desk piled high with papers and yellowing notes. But it was also pulsing with a sense of foreboding. "Lucy," Mark called, his voice sharp and desperate. "Are you in here?" I exchanged a glance with Mr. Jenkins, hesitating for just a moment. My mind raced through the memories I had of Mark, the laughter, our shared childhood. This wasn't he, the brother I remembered. Who had he become? I pushed the thought aside, steeling myself as I responded, try to sound steadier than I felt. "I'm here, Mark." He stepped into the room, his figure framed by the doorway, casting a long shadow over the space. The tension crackled in the air. "I knew you'd return," he said, pain flickering in his eyes. "Why did you dig up those tapes? You shouldn't have come back here." "Because I need to know the truth," I retorted, stepping forward. I felt Mr. Jenkins tense beside me. "About Mom, about everything. What happened at the lake?" Mark's face darkened visibly, and for a moment I wasn't sure if I'd crossed a line. "You don't understand what you're asking, Lucy," he said, his voice growing colder. "There are some things that are better left buried." "Like what?" I demanded, anger mixing with the bubbling anxiety surging in my chest. "I'm tired of shadows and whispers. I deserve to know." The room went silent. Mark's shoulders slumped momentarily, as if he was weighing his next words against the weight of the world. "You can't unsee those tapes, Lucy. You can't take back what you learned." The air felt thick with unspoken truths, words teetering on the edge of being unleashed. I knew there was a storm brewing inside of him, just waiting for a chance to break free. "Maybe I can't," I said quietly, feeling a tumult of emotions battling within me. "But I can't stand by any longer while this family's past looms over us like a shadow." What was Mom trying to protect me from? His expression flickered from pain to anger. "You're not listening. It's not just about you anymore." "Then what is it, Mark?" I pressed, my patience waning. "Everything that happened at the lake, it was our fault, the family, yes. We made mistakes you can't begin to comprehend." His voice cracked. "And those tapes? They're not memories. They're warnings. They remind us of who we were and what we were capable of doing." A chill washed over me as his words sank in, and the room narrowed, leaving just the three of us and our secrets. I thought of the whispers, the tortured faces on those tapes, the fear radiating off my mother's every gesture. What were we capable of? Mark's eyes hardened again, reflecting a deeper pain, one I couldn't decipher. "You need to let it go. Depart from this, Lucy. There are forces at play that shouldn't be trifled with." Before I could respond, a loud crash resonated through the house, rattling the walls and causing the overhead lights to flicker. My heart raced. The danger was closing in. "What was that?" I exclaimed, glancing at Mr. Jenkins, who looked equally distraught. Mark remained still, staring at me, as if he were calculating his next move. The air felt charged, heavy with tension, sensing something was about to break. "They're coming," he finally said, and for the first time, fear slipped into his voice. I stepped back instinctively. "Who's coming? What do you know? It's not your family that needs to be afraid. It's you," he warned, moving closer to me. "They want you brought back." And in that moment, the world tilted on its axis as I understood I had unwittingly unearthed something that should be remained entombed in the shadows. An ancestral cycle that had hunted the family for generations. My blood ran cold at the thought. I was no longer just Lucy. I was part of this legacy. Just then, Mr. Jenkins clutched my elbow. His voice barely above a whisper. He said, "Lucy, we can't stay here. We need to escape now." I nodded, the urgency bubbling over. I had to break free from the dark spiral tightening around me. Mark looked torn, almost pleading, but time wasn't on our side. I turned to run, pulling on Mr. Jenkins as we dashed out of the study. With each step back towards the stairs, the atmosphere shifted again, and the footfalls above seemed to grow louder, trapping us in a tension that felt explosive. A confrontation loomed, and none of us were ready for the consequences of digging into the past. As we fled, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever we were racing toward, the family's secrets, the silence, and a lurking danger, was just the beginning of something monumental. My heart hammered against my ribcage. I still had no clue if I could escape the boundaries of my bloodline, but the chase had begun, and I was determined to beat the shadows. Would I truly uncover the truth, an awakening of something ancient and vengeful, or would I become just another pawn in the family's dark past? The thought haunted me as I pushed forward, hoping against hope that there was still a chance to wrestle back control. I would find out soon enough.